Hey everyone, Professor Snart checking in as we get rolling into more of the content part of our course here, having finished up our introductions in Unit 1. So we're into Unit 2. I'm just going to click into the due dates first of all, which is a good thing to sort of click in to on a pretty regular basis, just to remind you obviously what's coming up immediately, but also sort of what's in the offing in terms of are there workshops coming up, so you should be working on like a short story, for example, or whatever, that you don't just want to do in the week or the unit that we're working on, but might actually want to be working on for a slightly longer time than would normally be the case for some of these more compartmentalized units that we're working on. But anyway, into Unit 2 then, due next Tuesday, September 4th. We're really into a Monday regular due date, but next Monday is Labor Day, so we sort of skip a day there. So anyway, this is more of the kind of, the creative writing content of the course, although we're not jumping right into like a full-blown story yet. Part of what we're doing, and actually there's two parts to this unit, but they both work together. The title of the unit is Working Like a Writer, but it could be, thinking like a writer or perceiving like a writer, really being conscious about looking for meaning beyond just the surface of things. And so the first part of what we're doing is kind of like a short story, except you also have the opportunity to reflect in what you're writing on why this moment that you're writing about is particularly significant. So it's maybe more of a personal, I don't want to call it an essay example, for example, necessarily, because it's really not that long, but it's more of a personal vignette or something like that, a personal memory. And obviously you're looking for something that is meaningful for you, and sometimes it's easier to start with what we know just because we're not having to make guesses or do research or a lot of that kind of stuff. So it's relatively immediate for us. And so part of it then is the creative writing part. How do you bring that moment to life for your reader using interesting language, evocative description, and all that kind of stuff. But the other part of what you're doing is trying to reflect for a moment on why this particular moment was important. It may have been something life-changing, but again, we're looking for some kind of meaning beyond just the surface of it. So in some cases, people write about something that was kind of surprising or shocking or even frightening, for example. So it has that sort of surface attraction for people, in as much as it has this immediacy, right? Right on the surface of it, we get something that's kind of intrinsically interesting. But really, as writers, we want to go beyond the surface, and in fact, think of a moment in your life that's not necessarily frightening or shocking or life-changing in those typical kinds of ways, but is still transformative, because in that way you're getting sort of beneath the surface of things and looking for meaning where it's not so obviously present. And that's really what it means to be thinking like or working like a writer. So be sure that you're thoughtful about the personal memory that you choose to think about here, to write about, that you don't just gravitate immediately and think, oh, I have to write about the most kind of shocking or immediately transformative thing that ever happened to me. Certainly you could make that choice, and there's obvious reasons to, because it might be the first thing that jumps into your head and really was a profound moment. But spend some time thinking about another moment that's not so kind of shocking or immediate, and see if it has value other than just that immediate shock value that people sort of gravitate towards. Okay, and stick to the length requirements. We're really not building a full story here. We are just describing more like a scene or a kind of vignette, a memory, something that's fairly self-contained. Okay, so the other part of our unit here is having you look at this interesting multimedia project by the author Sonia Huber, and it's kind of hard to explain. It's much easier to see it, which you will here. But really this is an interesting reflection on her part about this notion of how do I write. And there's sort of a practical side to it, but there's also more of a philosophical side, an emotional side. So I think in that multimedia genre, she's tried to capture through text and image and the interplay of various web elements, kind of the variety of this notion of how we write. So there's the physical, there's the practical part of it, but there's also more philosophical or emotional or even intellectual parts of that as well. So spend some time with that, and of course, as you look at her reflection on how she writes or why she writes, I'm encouraging you to think about the same kinds of questions. And then the discussion board is set up here where you're really just asked to kind of reflect on her reflection and think about what ideas resonated with you, even if it's something new that you hadn't necessarily thought of before. So it's not just looking for where you agree with her, but if there's a new idea or a new way of thinking about things that she presents, you really want to talk about that as well. And this is, again, where the discussion board format is nice because you're responding to a couple of other posts. And so you're reading this multimedia site, you're doing your own reflection, but you're also reading other students' reflection. So you're actually kind of combining a lot of different things here in terms of really being intentional and conscious about thinking about yourself as a writer. And so that's one of the first pieces we want to get in place here as we get into our course, is even if you're uncomfortable with it for whatever reason, I won't even talk about what those might be because they're various for various people. But at least for the course of the term here, it is really important to think of yourself as a writer. Even if you've never written stuff before and you feel like you're long ways off from publishing, even if it's, maybe that's not something you even want to do. But it's really important to take yourself seriously as a writer. So one of the best exercises is to reflect on and to see how other writers reflect on this fundamental question of how and why we write. So it's a good place to start here, Unit 2. The due date, again, is not until next Tuesday, September 4th. So you have lots of time to do this. We're really not rushing through this material. And so, make it valuable for you. It's kind of corny, I guess, but there's no point in either leaving it till the end and doing it really quickly or just rushing through it at the start to get it out of the way. It kind of defeats the purpose. So really take your time with it and try to learn something if you can. So hopefully you enjoy the creative writing part, the little bit that we're doing here, but also some of the larger reflections on how and why we write. Okay, so as always, if you have questions, be in touch with me. You can check grades then for Unit 1. Make sure you got full credit, or if you didn't figure out why, did you miss certain requirements? Did you not do the work or hand it in late or whatever? So again, especially with our online course, keeping up with due dates and making sure you're doing all of the required work is really, really crucial. Hey, I just noticed my t-shirt, life is great. It kind of is today. It's a pretty good day for me. Hopefully for you too. But if you have any questions or concerns, just be in touch with me and I'll talk to you guys later.